Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Shaman in the Garden with me, Faye Johnston. It's my aim here to help you awaken your inner wisdom and feel supported by the web of life and connected to the magic of nature and the earth, and particular your own back garden. And I have a beautiful soul with me today by the name of Lisa Estabrook. So Lisa is a way shower. She's a fellow plant whisperer, a very talented artist, and an author who has spent over 30 years remembering how to create meaningful, heart led, healthy, and joyful life with the soul flower plants as her loving guides. So, you may be familiar with Lisa's amazing soul flower oracle deck, and she also wrote a companion guidebook for that, along with the daily practice journal. And she lives within and stewards the Soulflower Sanctuary in Yarmouth, Maine, where she joins us today. So, hi, Lisa. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Faye.
So, I would really love to. You always are very reflective, you have a very tender nature and very heart led and felt, really with your work. So I would really love to know, you always talk about, tending the garden of your soul. So what I'd love to know really is what for you in this season of your life or this season of, nature are you tending most at the moment? What's going on?
Mm, Delightful question. Thank you. I am tending peace within me right now and peace within my garden. Always fostering relationship, but I have just remembered, well, not just remembered, but I have over many years this understanding about how when I'm in the garden, I'm also tending the garden, I'm also tending myself. And if I am creating sanctuary around me, it there has to be also sanctuary within me. So I feel like it's a both and. It's not one way or another. And I had a very challenging transition in my life this last year, and this feels ever more important. And for anybody actually on this planet, as what we're going through, inner and outer transformation, to tend this seed of peace and sanctuary within me, and also and help that to grow and hopefully proliferate and spread to others as well. So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at, and that's a full-time job. That's a full-time job.
It is, and your words remind me. It's like the garden being the mirror, and so if we are tending, if we're creating that peace within ourselves, um, that's creating the peace within the garden, and this kind of
Mhm.
like we're just striving for that balance and harmony around us, which is then felt by anyone who comes into contact with us. Um,
Absolutely.
or
That
maybe
seems,
also comes into contact with the garden
yeah,
as well,
yeah,
actually.
yeah, yeah, and that's the intention. That's the intention for sure.
So tell me, I know that it's been a while since your lovely Soulflower Oracle came out, but we all
Mm.
still love it, and I'm sure members of the community are going to running to get their Soulflower decks right now. So tell me, how do you work with your deck? But I've got it here, so I'm going to show it if to anyone who's listening on who can see this. This is the lovely Soulflower deck. I'm just going to show some of the. I'm going to show people see some of the lovely. So what strikes me, I love the colourful artwork that you use, Lisa. So how do you work with these
Mm.
plants and the deck?
Yeah, so I love that you have the OG version there
Yeah, I do.
that I self-published in 2016. So yeah, it's been a decade. I can hardly believe it. And it was actually professionally published by Inner Traditions Bearing Company, the Findorn Press, in 2022. And they combined the book in a very grown-up little box, which I thought was quite sweet. It was like, oh, my baby grew up, and, and how so it's always been. I've always felt like the deck is a bouquet of flowers, an offering and how people receive it. I want them to receive it as a bouquet, and how you feel when you receive a bouquet of flowers, uplifting and supportive, and how I've worked with the soul flowers has evolved as everything does, and grown and changed over the years. I use the deck in many ways. So the initial way that I was using it was as a daily practice, because tending is a daily practice. And so yes, nature is a mirror for us, and oracle cards are a mirror for us. They're not telling us anything that we don't know. It's just helping to bring into our conscious awareness something that a piece, a fragment, a soul fragment that we maybe have forgotten in that particular moment. So for me, having that daily practice, that grounding point of pulling my card for the day, which I do and still do for many years, is a significant kind of space holder for my own growth and becoming, and self-care, self-reflection, heart tending, all of those things. But I also use it in other ways. I have a lunar cycle practice. What originally, anyway, over the winter solstice for me is the time when I will sit down and I will, let go of the year before, and tune into each of the lunar cycles for the year ahead. And often I do this process publicly, free invitation to join me in it, and select your own soul flowers for the year ahead. But each lunar cycle I open to a flower that is my special guide for that lunar cycle, and they're always so perfectly matched, and such perfect wisdom. And I find that the lunar cycle is a really beautiful container for moving through the natural rhythms of nature, the expansion and the contraction, the planting the seeds, the watching them grow, the reaping the harvest, the composting and the integration and rest. So it's just a nice length of time to really be journeying with a plant. So from a shamanic perspective, it's a shamanic journey, but it's in everyday waking consciousness. I'm not going to an altered state of consciousness, unless actually maybe sometimes I think that I live my life in an altered state of consciousness, but I think it's like it's an everyday state of consciousness, and opening up to how nature and that flowers is supporting me through what I'm experiencing in that moment. So
So do you
so
pick one every moon cycle, every new
yes.
moon? Yeah.
Yes. And so I'm working with a daily, so it's like I'm creating my own custom bouquet. So I have my daily one, I have my, sometimes I have a weekly one, and I definitely have a lunar cycle one, and I also have one for the entire year. So if you think of, I'm gathering these, and so I'm always sort of aware of all their energies. This little bouquet that is evolving and changing, day to day, week to week, month to month, and yeah.
That's
So
lovely. The
yeah,
idea of having a bouquet, is
yeah,
it's really nice.
exactly. So that's how
Yeah.
I use it. That's how I use the deck, and I continue. People are like, "Oh, when are you going to bring out another deck? What about this flower? What that flower?" And I'm like, "Well, there's 44 flowers in there, and if you're trying to maintain relationships with 44 friends, and actually, that's a lot of work, and that's a lot of time, and I'm this lifetime for sure. I don't, there's other plants that I have grown relationships with that aren't soul flowers, but to really tend to the relationships that I already have. That's my work now. And
I feel like I definitely, and I see this in many, many other people, I went through this phase of once I sort of got that plant bug or realized that oh my God, I love like herbal medicine and plants and trees. And once that door opened up in me,
Mm.
I went into this. It was like a funnel. I suddenly went, oh, it's like my arms went really open wide, and a little bit ego-y, a little bit as well. Like, I want this, I want to know this. What's this one? I want to meet this one. So I kind of went in a bit of a human grab mode. Like, oh, I want to know
Yeah.
expansive, as many plants as possible. What's their medicine? Can I sit with them? Should I make an essence? What medicines can I make? And actually, but as the years go by now, yeah, my capacity for like tending and being in a very strong like kinship with these plant friends is just kind of, it's like it's sort of like in my life, the friends I've got, this like handful, tiny handful of kind of friends I went to school
Mm.
with, and those are kind of like the core. And it's almost like I feel that it's like with the plants as well. Then many more go
Absolutely.
to the periphery, and actually you have those kind of ones like that are in they're at the core of the bouquet,
Mm.
the main structure of the bouquet, and then the other ones kind
Absolutely.
of come and go. Um, so
Absolutely.
what I love about your work, Lisa, is it's really rooted in, kind of place, the heart, the plants, and community. And, you know, but I know you come from this graphic design background. So how did it come about that you're suddenly, on plant whispering and land listening, which we'll talk about in a minute, but what's the story there?
Well, we often take detours in our lives, don't we? We're looking at outside signs and, trying to, many of us have been conditioned. This is what you do, A, B, and C for success. And you're marching. I discovered that I was marching to the beat of a drum that was not coming from within me. I wasn't coming from my own heartbeat and my own joy and, classic midlife crisis perhaps. But in my 40s, I found myself on my knees physically, with in pain, chronic headaches from many years, but also just this. Why am I not happy? I've done everything I was told to do, and I've got a lovely husband. I have incredible kids, healthy kids, a home. What's missing? And there's just always this sense of wanting or something's missing, and I think it's in part that kind of consumerist, materialist culture that we live in. That well, if I only just this weight or have this thing or something, then I will be happy. And we're very much so. My background was marketing and graphic design, and I was very and I'm grateful for that because in many ways it gave me a language for this subtle manipulation of how we're sold to within advertising, that this is going to make you happy, and it sort of pushes people's pain points. And so I was aware of that space, but and this void within me, and this deep loneliness, this deep sense of not belonging on this planet, and in this void that couldn't be filled with commercial or materialistic things.
Stuff.
So,
Yeah.
so and stuff, yeah. So it's the only place that I felt just happy, joyful, peaceful, just a sense of well-being was when I was in my garden. So I've always gardened. I've always had that passion, and I just started to lean into it more and more. So it was a natural progression, and you know, I, I don't think that the wisdom of the flowers. I didn't believe it in the beginning, but how you have a relationship with a new baby, or nonverbal being, a new dog. It takes a while to learn who they are,
Mm.
and it's nonverbal communication. So it took a while for me to realize that these conversations I was having and everything that I was feeling, it's alive. It was alive, and there was this moment of recognition of how all these beings are so alive, and in which case, and conscious, and wanting to be in relationship with me. It was just this magical unfolding, and they have been ever since. They've been my, not only my therapists, my healers, my guides, my friends. It's this going from a place of incredible loneliness and to a place of feeling I belong. I belong in my body, I belong in my garden, I belong here on this planet. And so yeah, it's been quite the unfolding. And I'm not going to say that that was like an easy or comfortable journey. I think all growth and change, particularly in the self-awareness, it was challenging, it was painful at times, but I've come to a place of peace, and that's where I feel we began this conversation, like peace with
Peace.
what is, peace and surrender with what is actually happening in my life. And not just because something is having a bad time here, or I label it bad or judge it as bad. It's still part of this beautiful life, and it's giving me this tools to know that I can navigate it when I follow my own heart. That I can feel into the next step and the next step. I feel so grateful and blessed and humbled by the nurturing that I have received from the plants and from nature. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's what
Yeah.
popped out of my mouth. But
It's very much about like what you're speaking to is being very like we're really held by the gardens when we're really present to what is, because they just are,
yes,
aren't they? They're just
always.
um and this is bringing me to actually something that we've been kind of talking about it throughout this year because we were at Findhorn together earlier in the year,
Mm,
which was great. So yeah, land listening.
mm,
I know that this is part of your work now, and it's funny, isn't it? Because when you label something, you kind of go, well, it's always been there. Of course it has. It's just, how can you not? How can you be working with plants or making medicines or flower essences or even painting gorgeous pictures if you're not really being present and listening to the land or tending your garden? So
mm.
how do you define land listening? Just give people listening in what do you kind of define as land listening, and what can you share some of your process of how you go about it?
So, well, initially I used to say that, it is like whenever you label something, you limit it, right? So originally I was like, oh, I'm a plant whisperer,
Yeah.
and that has evolved to land whisperer because at some point I had this realization that everything is a garden, not just my garden. Everything is a garden, and
Uh-huh.
the way that nature kind of has shown me is that anywhere where there's a human, or a human kind of activity is a garden. So like not just my actual garden, but my home is a garden of sorts. My community is a garden of sorts.
Yeah.
There's very few wild places right now, but I think when I had the realization that when I was tending that land, I was tending myself. I realized that in listening to my own feelings and listening to where I'm led and drawn, I'm I'm also and listening to the land in the same way. That's what it is. That's what land whispering is. So it's not it's like self-reflection. The nature is a mirror for us. When we're in that deep space of understanding and knowing that we belong within that landscape, that we're a part of the garden as much as the plants and the trees and the art and the bench that we put down or whatever. When we realize that we're actually a part of that garden as well, that's where I started to elevate it to land whispering,
Mm.
because it was more of a much more holistic perspective. So how I feel like it's a I've talked about this, but like ninja presence. It's like ninja presence. It's like
We were
being
talking about this just before we pressed record, and I
yes.
was like, we need to talk about ninja presence, Lisa. This is great.
Right. So, yeah, so when I am making my coffee in the morning, trying to be present, when I go out into the garden and I'm trying to be like completely present with what is at the moment, instead of like going out and seeing chores, things that need to be done. Things that, I will, the very first thing I will do is bring myself present into my center myself, bring myself into my heart. And I do that multiple times a day, no matter what I'm doing. And I feel like this is land whispering, this is what it is. So when I am centered and when I am in my heart, then I am moving from a place of feeling and resonance rather than from my head that is saying, I've got this to do, that to do, and I'm making everything transactional.
Yeah.
And robbing it of its joy as well at the same time. So my process now is to be as present as possible with everything that is happening around me and within me, and that in that space there's a deep acceptance for what is actually happening. So I stop feeling like I guess it's like moving from like a linear state of consciousness where you're like, okay, I've only got an hour, I've got this time, and I've got to do this, this, and this, to a state of like you're centering within, but you're also like becoming a much wider lens for what you're experiencing. So I start to feel like, well, nature's doing a fine job taking care of itself. It does fine without me. What would bring me joy to do right in this moment? Oh, it's go over there and, rake some of those leaves around, or, make a new piece of art for over here in the garden, or whatever it is. It becomes joyful, and I feel like there's room, therefore, in that relationship for the land to speak to me and to show more of itself. Whereas, if I'm going out there and I have my design, my intentions, and I mean, you want to have clarity about your intentions, but I suppose it's like when I have my expectations, when I have my judgments, oh, that doesn't look good, or that, I, I feel like I'm able to feel more closely how that judgment is painful. When you speak to another human and you say, oh, you don't look so good right now, or your hair's a mess, or whatever, it's not a kind thing. It's painful. It's judgy, or you're dressed in some way, and I started to feel the same feeling sense in my body when I would go out and say, oh my God, look at that state, you're flopping over, you look like a mess, look at your branches, they need pruning. I started to feel this same thing, and I've never ever felt judgment from nature. It's like, it's so right, it's so loving and
Giving,
just
isn't it? It's
so
giving.
giving, and so like wherever you're at in that moment, and so time seems to dissolve, therefore, and you kind of move into this cyclical consciousness, and like the trees have lifespans that are hundreds of years potentially, and we have these short lifespans, and it gives me a deep sense of peace that everything is okay, everything is fine, and I just get to enjoy it. I get to live within it, and and I feel like as I've relaxed, and I'm talking about, this is 12 to 15 years, particularly in this garden, which I've tended for almost 16 seasons now. You know, it takes care of itself, and it's so beautiful, all the happy accidents and all the way the things, all the plants that have come forth that I never would have planted, and how I've learned so much about how it grows, and learning about myself at the same time. So like it's very hard to articulate what land whispering is, but I feel like it's a state of being
Very
in
much. Yeah, that feels like what you're
being in
describing.
coherence with the world that we live in, and a deep understanding of my place within it, and I don't think, yeah, a deep sense of belonging. So I've moved from this place of loneliness and isolation and feeling so unfulfilled to a space of just feeling like, oh my God, I belong and I'm contributing, and if I don't contribute, it doesn't matter. It's like, it's just, I'm loved, and I love, and it's beautiful, and I wish that for everybody. Whether you have land that you're tending, or it's just a potted plant on your windowsill, just this, or you're just taking a breath, of air that is provided by nature, just this deep sense of peace and belonging with our planet. And
There's the level of acceptance there as well, too, isn't
yes,
there? That's
yeah, and
amazing.
that's the language of the heart, I think. And so when you start listening to your own heart, and you kind of like that, isn't it some sort of, isn't it Thich Nhat Hanh that says something? The journey from our head to our heart is the longest journey, and I think that's what I've done with the help of nature, is move from my head to my heart, and
Yeah, definitely. It's
yeah,
definitely the way we, I always used to talk about it in my first book, like moving from the head to the heart, and that's
yeah,
exactly, um, yeah, that's the path to
yeah.
remember that connection, remembering
Exactly.
the bigger
Remember.
womb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Remembering. And I love the root words, the meaning of remember, like is the opposite of dismember.
Mm.
it's that is the healing journey. Remembering these, bringing back all these parts of yourself, while you also let go of these expectations and beliefs and judgments and stories and all this, baggage that we've also accumulated over this lifetime and probably many generations.
So,
So,
what do you think blocks us then? I mean, you just mentioned baggage there. Do you think, um, would you say, what would you say was some more of the blocks which mean kind of that people kind of think, ugh, I can't do it, or even that people don't really understand what it is and don't want to do it or don't seem it necessary?
yeah, I mean, I think the biggest blocks are, and this is like for ourselves and for the land, is this perceived notion of what it should look like, the expectations of what it should look like, whether it's us that we should, be slim and this and that, or, have this good job or whatever. I mean, there's so many expectations of what the land should look like. And when we say should, we're limiting, we're immediately creating, discordant energy, because we're in our minds and we're trying to figure out what it is that the garden should be. So when we go out there, I feel like there's an invitation from the land and nature to let go of our expectations and our judgments, and instead move into our heart and our deepest desires and our intentions for what this space will be. And that's what we radiate out instead, is our desire for sanctuary, our desire for being able to nourish yourself, our desire for medicine, or whatever that is. And of course desire has taken on a very inverted meaning in our world too. It's often like, I desire a big house, I desire a car, whatever, or it's become like a dirty word in many ways. But I think like our hearts as a guidance system, when we come to the garden with intention, what we wish to feel and how we wish to move there, then, and we're radiating that out instead of the judgment and the chores and the expectations, well, then that's an opening for nature to respond. And it's, so our beliefs also, our beliefs about, what is beautiful, all those sorts of things, that's the biggest blocks, I think. And so, and it goes hand in hand as you kind of let go and recognize that nature is intelligent and knows what it's doing. And then you realize that you're a part of nature and your body is intelligent and knows what it's doing. Then, it elevates the whole process and the relationship
So
in an
have you
amazing.
noticed a shift in your garden since you kind of
Oh
adopted this
gosh,
approach?
totally,
Mm.
totally. I sometimes think of it like, so like when I let go of what is invasive, what is native, all
Mm.
those kinds of beliefs and stories. It's not that I don't understand the different biomes and what was originally there. Who knows, because things are always evolving. I mean, what was native here 100 years ago or 200 years ago or 5,000 years ago? I mean, who knows. So when it started to become like this arbitrary thing, and I'm like, well, I'm not native to Maine, but I'm here, and so there's been like when you put out aggressive battle energy to the land, it protects itself just like a human does. So where there was where there was invasive species, labeled invasive species, that I was trying to get under control, and I was like emanating this battle energy that has completely disappeared, and it feels like, calm within like a kindergarten, for instance. Like lots of different plants. Everybody's got a place, and everyone's welcome. There's less bullying, and instead there's like, an idea of generosity, like, oh my goodness, you're so good at self-seeding yourself, and or they just kind of like they just sort of come into balance. Like, I don't feel like I don't weed nearly as much as I do now, did. There's like, there seems to be like a balance that's occurred, and also when there's an excess, now I feel it as abundance and generosity, and I pot things up, and I have a little pay from the heart plant stand at the end of the driveway there, and I just put things out there. These need a new home. Let's see if we can find them a new home, and share the abundance. But the invasive species have just really settled down into a space of presence, but not overtaking. Like it, and I think it's felt. I think people feel the peace when they come into the garden. I certainly do, for sure. I certainly do. So, and I'm not, out in the wilderness somewhere. This is a suburban garden. I can see my neighbors. It's an acre, which is a good size piece of land, and lots of trees. But it's markedly different. There's hundreds of species of plants in this acre, and not just the monocultures potentially that are around me. And I see it, how it's also spreading too, which I think is really interesting. Yeah.
But it's
So
also, that's sort of because like the vibration comes first, doesn't it? The energetic comes
yes,
first,
yes,
and then
yes,
and that's felt, and then almost the physicality comes, and then there are other reactions to it.
yes,
So
yes. I think everything is like, there is like a cause and effect. When we're emanating some battle energy, we're receiving battle energy. It's mirroring back at us, just like these oracle cards are mirrors for us. So is the nature around us. So I feel as I've transformed that battle energy within me and what I emanate out, being more present and accepting and loving of what is, then
totally everything you're
yeah.
saying. I mean, we agree on many things to do with the gardens and the plants, but it totally resonates with me because you've been here to Gardener's Cottage, and the garden here was, it was a botanic garden. It had a lot of structure. It was very, if you like, manipulated by the previous
Hmm.
owners, with a particular, you know thought out planting plan, and
Hmm.
very well, kind of researched, and an idea of these plants are going here and they're going to do this, and and um when we first moved in, I felt there was a lot of there was like, in a sense, it was a battle within myself, because I recognized I felt like there was that part of me that wanted to be the good girl, and maintain this all so lovely, pristine and gorgeous. But then there was actually, really my truth, my wild, my organic self, who's like, well, let the plants do what they need to do. Let the more native species come back if they're thriving, because actually these plants that are put here, are a bit out of, they're a bit on the edge of their tolerance, and also I knew there was a lot of preconceived ideas from other people who knew the garden before we moved
Right,
in, as to kind of what we were
right.
going to do with the
External
space.
expectations.
Exactly, this expectation. So there was all of this,
Yeah.
like, that I was carrying, and it's very interesting how I'm just thinking of people listening to this, and I know in the UK, and you've spent time in the UK, Lisa. I mean, it all comes from the Victorians. This idea of needing a manicured lawn, and how a garden should look, and we're slowly getting there with actually allowing our gardens to be for wildlife, or meadows, and so on. But collectively, like as a culture, it's there in in the collective consciousness, this idea of kind of this garden having to be a sort of pristine environment perhaps, and it's just, I mean, we're shifting it slowly, it's shifting, or
Mm.
we're kind of, I mean, it kind of goes back to rewilding ourselves, doesn't it,
Absolutely, absolutely. That's exactly what it is. And I think we have these, we're trying to transform like this, this human, like that the human is at the pinnacle of existence, that we're the top down, and and it's throughout all of our systems, right down to the individual level, that we're in charge, and we have, I mean, the control issues that have been passed down and manufactured for us. And just think about how much time people spend just, trying to control dandelions in their lawn, and the industries that have spawned, chemical
Yes.
industries that have, and yeah, and just all because you want to be perceived in some way as successful, or what, I don't know, all these kinds of narratives and all these kind of stories. This is what we are evolving now, because they're not sustainable. They're not, they're not sustainable, and there's just an incredible, you know
And they're kind of they're
beauty.
damaging though. They're
They're
damaging the
damaging,
earth,
yeah.
aren't they? This. So yeah, it's
They're damaging us, and they're damaging the earth. They're damaging everything. It's not the nutrition. It's not a nutritious soil with which we're trying to grow our best lives or our best world. It's just not. So,
So what are so for somebody listening who
mm,
feels like, okay, I want to connect to my garden a bit more then. What would
mhm.
be the first start? I mean, we've talked about the preconceived ideas, the judgment, the kind of
Mm.
but what else is there kind of a particular exercise or the first step that somebody can take, like when they're out in their space, for
All right.
example?
So the first step is to center yourself and ground, and
Hmm.
that you're here and you're offering your services. The second is to ask to connect. If you don't ask, how can you connect? And then you need to know that you are connected. You have to just trust that, whether you have some sort of, I don't think anyone has a flash of light or a voice or anything like, you have to, when you ask, you need to trust that you are actually connected. And then I often share with beginners, like they have like you said, when you want to learn about plants and plant medicines, you want to know all the plants and all the plant medicines.
Hmm.
And so there's this tremendous force energy, that creative force energy that we have in our wanting to do all the things, right?
Yeah.
So,
But
so I
also,
tell,
for me, I know it also comes from kind of, I want to master it, I want to dominate it.
yes,
I mean,
exactly. I
and
want to
actually,
understand all
no,
the
you have
things.
to kind of take that down a notch, don't you? It's like, no,
Well,
you just get to know it.
yes, yes. I mean, and your little piece of it as well, because it's like, how can we? I mean, I like it's so arrogant to think that we can even understand the mystery of life itself and everything that's been and everything that will be. I mean, it's enormous. It's vast. I am just a little tiny little, seed, a little point of perception in this whole great big, universe, and this ecology that we're in. It's extraordinary. So it's humbling. So to come from a place of humility, and I'm a student always, that sort of thing, absolutely beautiful. And a practice I share with people is, you know, I mean, literally, perhaps, but in your imagination, put on a ball gown, put on your finest clothes, and then go out and see how you touch the land. If you're in a ball gown, you're not going to be like hacking everything down. You're not going to be in this state of like, I've got to clear, I've got to do. You'd be in a lot much more conscientious place of, I'm going to just gently snip this thing, or I'm going to like allow myself to be move gracefully through the garden. So oftentimes, yeah, tell people to put on their imaginary ball gowns. And if nature is a mirror for us, which it is, and we're a part of it, the invitation then is to touch and talk and think about the land as you would wish to be touched, talked, and thought about. And when you can see yourself in that place, like, and it's not, we learn that from maybe other humans, treat others as you wish to be treated. Well, I think we need to encompass the land in that as well as ourselves. So, often we have that inner critic, and there's many levels of it, and it's all interwoven and it's all overlapping, and it's complex. So that's where the ninja presence comes in, because you just have to be like aware of like what is, but also having this expansive cyclical, long-term, nature's pace trajectory in your doing, and that's where I think the peace is found. So,
Thank you. Good starting point for everyone. And what do you, okay, there's kind of two sides to this question. I kind of want to know what questions you are asking at the moment. And I also want to know what you feel the land is kind of showing you at the moment. So there's sort of two things, or maybe what the land is asking from us. So yeah, first question: what are you asking at the moment?
yeah, what is mine to do? What is mine to do? Always, what is mine to do?
Best question. Love it.
You know, whether it's in my own life, whether it's in the garden, whether it's how can I serve the collective, um, transition that we're going in, whatever it is, it's always what is mine to do, because, like you said, we do want to do all the things, and we can't, but we each have a unique gift, and I think that's what the land has nurtured in me. This understanding, I sometimes joke that we're all complicated houseplants, but we're each unique. We're unique human beings. We each are unique flowers. We may share similarities, physical traits, personality traits, geographical traits, whatever. We have a lot of similarities, but we also are unique in our expression. And so, part of the learning to follow your own heart's guidance is to know your own beauty. And that's what the land is always, I remember a conversation with White Pine one time, and was it was a funny story, but it was mud season here in Maine. Is mud season, you're always looking where you're going, because it is mud and puddles, and it's the transition from winter to spring, and it's a mess. And so I was in a state of like, oh my god, everything's a mess, it's muddy, it's gross. And there was this puddle, and it was so still, the water, and I just stopped myself for a moment, my mind chatter, and I noticed the incredible reflections of all these pine trees above me, because I was looking down, and they were all reflected in the puddle. And then I saw the clouds, reflected in this puddle, and I was just awestruck by the beauty of this world around me. And I was just, my heart opened, and I remember something like, I was by myself, so talking out loud and just expressing this awe and beauty for the world around me. And I felt this inner knowing, in my inner voice saying, and we wish you to see the beauty of yourself within this too, and so that is what the land is asking for. This earth is asking, first of all, to love it and understand we're a part of it, and then and to love ourselves, and to know that when we're in that state of coherence with our own heart, what we emanate out, our vibration, is exactly what the earth needs right now. And we don't have to be like anybody else, just that love and honoring of each other and ourselves in that space. That's, we're all like the pieces of the puzzle, right? We're all part of it, and the health and well-being of this planet. So I don't know, and that's lofty, and that's maybe long term, and who knows, but in every moment we have this invitation from the land to cultivate and tend ourselves and our own growth, and know that we are contributing that to the whole. My piece is creating a field of peace is hopefully a gift. And you see these invitations for global, collective meditations or something like that, and how it actually changes. I think there's people measure the Schumann resonance, and it matters. Our peace matters. It matters, literally creates matter. It creates this this world that we know we can create. So and I think it's for me. If I can emanate that peace when I'm going to the grocery store and facing, looking at the suffering, looking at the poverty, looking at the things that are happening you know, I think it's like a smile can change the energy, right? Like the bouquet of
Definitely.
flowers can change the energy of the room. Like we can be these blooms that can elevate the energy around us. And so the land, it's always been, asking me to be responsible for my energy, for my what I'm resonating out, for my thoughts, for my words, for my actions. I mean, it starts with the physical, your actions, but then it goes into your words,
Mm,
and then it goes into your thoughts, because your thoughts, your imagination, everything that we are creating is first thought. It's imagined, and I don't want to imagine the freaking nightmare. I don't want to imagine a nightmare scenario. I want to imagine and create a beautiful world, that the Garden of Eden that I know we live in. So
what is that what's your secret vision then? What's your
yeah, it
hope
is.
for our
Yes.
relationship, for the
Yeah.
plants and the landscapes that hold us?
Just yeah, just to open our hearts, to live in an open-hearted state. And I've been contemplating, within my own life, that there's not an awful lot of difference between being broken-hearted and open-hearted. What is the difference there? So transforming this idea of being broken and in grief, and seeing it, you know embodying the grief as a superpower, like that vulnerability. When you're in that state, it allows you to see the beauty in the dandelion pushing up through the cracks of the pavement. It allows you to notice, I don't know, the reflection of the light on the wet leaves. I can't even express, but I feel like we have this. We literally, we live on the Garden of Eden, and I've always felt that. I've always felt like this discordant. This is heaven on earth. It's like it is heaven on earth. This is what my biggest vision is, that we can all slowly, one by one, open up to this, and
Feel it.
and yes, to feel it. And it doesn't mean that it's all unicorns and rainbows. It really certainly doesn't mean that. It just means that, because life is death too. Life is dissolution and compost and soil and dark. Like, it's not about being in a perpetual summer, and all of
Yeah.
that. It's about it again. It's ninja presence with all of life and death and all that it is, and our ability to see the beauty in all of that. And yeah, and that's what nature teaches us so beautifully. I think it's just extraordinary,
No,
extraordinary.
I'm with you. I'm with you, and I'm sure many people listening are too. So
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's
Mm,
yeah, you see, you really do. You always speak really from the heart, Lisa. So thank
mm,
you. Thank you so
mm,
much. And you are emanating a lot of loving peace today. So yeah, we're really feeling it. So I want to thank you. So my last question really is just like maybe really about, well, what are you most excited about? Are the plants leading you somewhere? They led you to create your beautiful artwork up for the Soulflower deck. I know you set up an online community. You've done your all sorts of you've done your mentorship programs and your these all sorts of things that you do. So have they got a project in mind for you? Is there something, or what are you most excited about this summer?
Well, I'm entering a new life. I feel like I let go of a lot of my business. I let go of a lot of things in my life. So which I consider to be a personal winter.
Mm,
And now the plants are leading me in welcoming and opening to new life. And I feel like, as the way shower
mm,
role that I have, I feel like I am here now to not only just be a voice for the flowers, but to really help people understand heart, language, and resonance. And a few years ago, had collaborated with Deb Sewell of Vivina Botanicals, which is in Rockport, Maine, and she and I have been creating a line of flower essences for the soul flowers themselves. And I'm feeling really called to educate and bring forth the understanding of vibratory medicine and resonance. And I think a lot of times, when you talk about medicine, in the scientific world, there's always this a blind test, and they're like a placebo thing, and there's this talk about like a placebo effect, having this placebo effect that is dismissed, like, oh, that's it's sort of dismissed as not what the medicine is, and the flowers are like, no, 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 that's everything, that's resonance, that's your beliefs, and how that's all creating reality. So the flowers are asking me to step into that, and I'm curious to see how that will unfold for me, because I've never had the plants have been my teachers this whole time. I've not had like, oh, the flower essence certification or this and that, where I'm in my mind trying to put a structure on things. And so I'm really excited to open to how to continue to work with this kind of idea of vibratory medicine. And part of my trip to England recently was to I gathered well water from the chalice well, and I'm dreaming and a set of land essences for people that are wanting to do the land listening and the land whispering, to support them, to recognize and remember and restore their relationship with the land. So I don't know. I don't have all the ingredients. I don't know exactly how this sacred play is going to evolve, but that's where I'm at, and I'm really excited about it. And
That sounds
and open,
it
yeah.
sounds incredible, and actually that really highlights what I love and appreciate about your work, Lisa. Is it's very, I said at the beginning when I introduced you, you're very reflective and you really
Mm,
feel. So yeah, it's that creative spiral of kind of working rather
mm,
than kind of following the A to B linear masculine, right? This is the process. It's kind of like, oh well, I'm feeling my way and this is my intention, and I'm gathering the seeds along the way and looking for
mm,
extra ingredients or components or a space to plant them or a container to hold them or some water to tend, some food to nourish them. And I just, it's a very beautiful process. And
mm,
I really want to thank you for sharing a little bit of a tiny bit of your world
mm.
today. It's been really lovely. So I'm going to put all of Lisa's links below.
Yeah,
But Lisa, where can people mostly find
just
you?
my website. A long time ago I let go of a lot of my, social media presence, because I just needed to be in one place, and that's here. But I am attending my website, and that's where you can connect with me now. And if you're in Yarmouth, Maine, or coming to the Boston area, or even up there, my gardens are, I'm opening them up to share them with others. And so there's an invitation on my website for in-person and virtual offerings. So yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much,
Mm,
Lisa, and thanks everyone for listening. You can find out more about
mm,
Lisa on the links below and the Shaman in the Garden. You can subscribe on Substack and be part of our monthly gatherings and find out more about connecting to the land and come to a retreat in Scotland while you're at it. Why not? So take care and share this with someone who needs to feel the love from the plants and connect in a deeper way to their garden space. So thanks everyone. Bye.
bye bye. Thank you.